Hi there, welcome to this Maths Technician 1 class on transposition of formulae. This will be the first transposition formulae lecture of 2 or 3 lectures. Okay, what do we mean by transposition of formulae? Well, another way of thinking of transposition of formulae is changing the subject of the formula. What we mean by that is if we've got a formula and we need to rearrange it so that the subject is by itself on one side of the equals and everything else in the formula is on the other side. So if we look at this first example here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to transpose a equals y minus b to make y the subject. At the moment, a is the subject because a is by itself. So what we want is we want y to be by itself. Now, the thing that is stopping y being by itself is the b. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to bring across this b to this side of the equals. Now, when we bring something across to the other side of the equals, we have to do the opposite of what it's doing on the current side. So because this says minus b on the right hand side, what we have to then do when we bring it across is we have to add b to the left hand side. So that now reads a plus b on the left hand side and then equals 2y. Now we've got y by itself, so therefore y is the subject of the formula. Okay, sometimes it's convention to write it the other way around like this, but either is fine. Okay, a slightly trickier one. Transpose cy plus a equals m to make y the subject. Now in this question we've got two things making y not being the subject at the moment. So we've got the c and we've got the a. Now we have to make sure we do things in the correct order when we bring them across, or else we'll get the question incorrect. So with this one, what you need to think is what is closest to y? Well, in this case, it's the c. That means that that is going to come across last because it's kind of got the strongest bond with y. So we want y to be by itself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring this a across. And because it's plus a on the left hand side, it's going to become minus a on the right hand side. So at the first step, this now reads cy equals m minus a. Notice it's m minus a, not a minus m. Okay, we are subtracting the a from the right hand side. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step is to think, well, what is the c doing to the y? Well, the c, because it's right next to the y, it's multiplying the y. Okay, so when we bring the c across, to this side, what we're going to have to then do is we're going to have to divide by c. So when we divide by c, we're going to write y equals m minus a, and then all of that divided by c. Okay, so that was two steps to that equation. So firstly, we needed to subtract a to get to the first step here, and then we divided by c to get to the final step. Okay, moving on to example 3. So transpose ay minus b squared equals d to make y the subject. Okay, we've got two things again that's stopping y being the subject. That is the a and the b squared. So we need to think, well, what is closest to y? And that thing is going to move last because it's got the strongest bond. So the a is closest to y. So we're going to move this minus b squared across to that side. Now we're not going to do anything to do with the square root or the square because that is not happening to the y, that is happening to the b. So all we need to simply do there is if it's minus b squared on the left hand side, it becomes plus b squared on the right hand side. So at the first step we get ay equals d plus b squared. And then as above, we need to think, well, what is happening to the y? Well, it's been multiplied by a at the moment. So if I bring the a across, to this side, I need to divide by a. So that gives me y equals d plus b squared all over a. And now what we have is we have this transposed for y. Okay, example 4. Transpose b equals c bracket times by y plus w close bracket. Okay, when you've got a bracket like this and the subject is inside the bracket, I recommend that the best thing to do first is to actually multiply the bracket out. Okay, so the c multiplies both the y and the w. So that's what we need to do first. That is before we have done any transposition. Okay, so it's just a kind of pre-step. Okay, now what we have is we have two things stopping the y being by itself. We have c and we have the cw. So we need to make sure that we take the correct thing across first. Well, same as before, the c is closest to the y, so we're going to leave that last. So we're going to bring across this cw to the left-hand side. Because it is adding to the right-hand side, that means it's going to subtract from the left-hand side. So we get b minus cw equals cy. Okay, and now what we need to do, we need to bring this c across. The c is multiplying the y, so when that comes across, that is now going to divide the whole left-hand side, like so. And you would just leave it like that. Okay, and again, if you want to write it the other way around, just the y's on the left-hand side, that's absolutely fine. But either or is fine. Okay, example 5. Now this is a bit trickier, this one. This throws people a lot. Transpose t minus y equals g to make y the subject. Now what most people try to do here is they think, well, there's t and there's a minus, so I need to add t to the right hand side. However, that isn't correct. What we have here is this y, the minus is in front of it, so that belongs to the y, it doesn't belong to the t. Try and do it in your head with a couple of numbers. Replace some of the numbers. For example, 3, 2, and 1. And you'll see that it doesn't work. So what we need to do first, when there is a minus in front of the subject, in this case the y, is we need to bring the subject across to the other side. And in this case, we need to add y to that side. Okay, so it's a bit of a special case, this, when you've got a minus in front of your subject. So if we add y to the right hand side, we get t equals g plus y. Okay. Now what we've got is we've got the y, and that is now positive, which is what we want here. We can't have it to be negative. So that means we can now transpose anything else across to the left hand side. So this g is adding to the y. We can bring that g across and subtract it. So we're going to subtract g. So we now get t minus g equals y. Okay, so that's a bit of a harder one. Just beware of your negatives. Okay, moving on to the next slide. I'm going to just move on to some harder ones now. So in these ones, we're making A the subject of these formulae. So S equals AB over T. So we want an A to be by itself. Okay, so there's going to be two steps here. We've got this T to get rid of, and we've got this B to get rid of from the right-hand side. So the first thing I suggest you do is get rid of the fraction. That'll just tidy everything up and make it look a bit easier. So what I'm going to do is this here, this t, at the moment, it is dividing the right-hand side. So if I take this across to this side, that is going to then times by t. Okay, so that's now going to read s times t, or st, equals ab. Okay. Now we've just got the B to take care of. Well, what is the B doing to the A? The B is multiplying the A. So if we bring the B across to this side, that is going to divide. Okay, and if we just move up here, that is now going to read ST over B is equal to A. And you've now got A as the subject of the formulae. Okay, so in these ones, if possible, try to get rid of the fraction first. So example 7, we've got a few steps here. C equals dA plus G over T. Okay, so we're making A the subject again. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this fraction. So I'm going to bring the T up to there. It's dividing on the right hand side, so it's now going to multiply by T on the left hand side. So CT equals dA plus G. Okay, we then need to make sure that we're choosing the right step. So the D is closest to A, so leave that till the end. We can then take this plus G, and if we take it to the left hand side, that's now going to become minus G. And then finally, the D is multiplying the A, so that is going to come across here, and it's going to divide that side. Remember, we're always doing the opposite of what it's doing to the subject. So divide the whole thing by D. Okay, and now we have A the subject. And final example, S minus WA over B equals Z. We're making A the subject again. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to get rid of that B. We're going to get rid of that fraction. So the B, because it's dividing this side, it's going to come up there and multiply the Z. It doesn't matter if you write BZ or ZB. It means the same thing. Okay, now this is one of those problems where we have a minus in front of the subject. Okay, you've got minus WA. So because that's minus, I'm going to bring that across first. So it's going to say S equals BZ plus WA. Okay, because I want my subject, the A, to be positive. Okay, I then start to bring everything back the way. So do I bring the BZ across or do I bring the W across? Well, W is closest to A, so I leave that until the end. So this, because it's added to that side, comes across and gets subtracted. So we get S minus BZ equals WA. And then finally, this W is multiplying the A. So it's going to come across and divide. So finally, we have the subject of the formula. So that's quite a tricky one, that one. Okay, that's the first lecture done on this. There's going to be another one afterwards. What I would like you to do now is, if you go onto Moodle, onto your Maths Tech 1 page, and where it says Evaluation and Transposition, if you click the Transposition PDF, it will come up with this. And what I'd like you to do for now is I would like you to do the exercise on the second page, which actually says page 11 in the bottom right, and the exercise on the fourth page, which says page 13 in the bottom right. Okay? If you've got any questions, please email me or wait until next week when we'll pick them up at the tutorial. Thanks now.